Part 3. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 21. Wizards can use the witch language to create witchcraft that suits them. But the best magic weapons are those that have been verified by generations of wizards and have matured. The spiritual pet crystal is a very mature witchcraft weapon. Rudolph saw the materials needed for the level 1 spiritual pet crystal and felt a headache for a while. The wizard crystal, this Rudolph has, got it from the wizard buried in the cemetery. And Rudolph's wizard crystal is still level 3, which is very high level. Rudolph also has a level 1 druid accessory, which he just got from a dead druid. The key is the third main material, starstone. Rudolph does not have starstone now. The last starstone was used by Rudolph to promote himself as a wizard apprentice. After Rudolph collected the druid's body, he walked out of the cabin. Let's go quickly. When the werewolves attacked the racecourse, they were hasty in pursuit of speed, and not all of the druid's horses were killed. Ivan had already found 2 horses. Rudolph and Ivan got on the horses. It was already dawn, and they rushed towards Lehman town quickly. Along the way, Rudolph saw the gnawed skeletons of many animals. Over the years, there has never been a case of the druid tribe being wiped out around the town of Lehman. A large group of werewolves suddenly migrated around the city of Fabreau, so much so that the werewolves began to attack the druid tribe for food. After walking for an hour, Rudolph suddenly said, "No. The situation is wrong. Why haven't we met anyone in an hour?" Walking on the road for an hour without meeting anyone made Rudolph feel lonely and uneasy in his heart, like they were walking on a road leading in the wrong direction. The good news is that after walking for another half an hour, they finally saw someone. The bad news is, they see dead people. Rudolph got off his horse and saw a small caravan, a caravan with only 3 carriages. The caravan's goods were left untouched. The werewolves didn't care about the human goods. They ate up the 5 people in the caravan. As the druid said, werewolves eat humans just like humans eat meat. People can't always be vegetarian, and werewolves can't always eat those beasts. Rudolph finds the men's ids, which will be chalked up to a werewolf attack. Rudolph cannot transport the caravan's goods back now, but Rudolph will keep the silver coins on them. If their family members come to visit them, the money will be returned to them. Several accounting sheets were found in the caravan, and Rudolph briefly recorded the incident. These documents will be archived at the police station. After dealing with these trivial matters, Rudolph and Ivan continued on their way. "Captain, there are werewolves ahead." Rudolph looked at the half of the sun that had poked out from the ground line and said, "Let's go. The werewolves will retreat during the day." The 2 quickened their horses and hurried forward quickly. As they approached a curve, Rudolph heard the howling of wolves not far away. Rudolph picked up his firearm. His gun now only had ordinary bullets left. In order to hide his identity as a wizard, he has not made venom bullets for the time being. When 2 horses appeared on the road, one of them wearing a patrol uniform, the effect was immediate. Rudolph fired 2 empty shots to alert the caravan that someone was coming to help them. The werewolves saw that the patrol was coming. Although there were only 2 of them, it was already dawn. Werewolves hated the sun made them depressed, so these werewolves turned around and left the road. Facing the retreating werewolf, Rudolph was helpless. When he got closer, Rudolph realized that this was not a caravan, but a circus. Rudolph saw Captain Secco dying in front of the circus. Walking into the circus, there are animal trainers, bears who can perform arithmetic, lions who can jump through fire hoops, acrobats, etc., all of them are dead. Rudolph thought of that clown Cooper. He found Cooper the clown in the back of a carriage, with half of his throat bitten off. Rudolph squatted next to Cooper, and he found that Cooper was not dead yet. He saw Cooper's lips trembling, as if he was saying something, so he moved closer to Cooper's mouth. "Take me to the leader, take me to the leader." Rudolph did not move Cooper because he felt that if he lifted him, the remaining half of his throat would be completely severed. With a few quick steps, Rudolph delivered Secco's body to Clown Cooper. 2 tears streaked Cooper's face, smearing his paint. Captain Secco was already dead, but suddenly he came to life. Rudolph's living corpse teeth moved uneasily, giving him a toothache. Captain Secco took out his dagger and cut off his own neck with great effort, as if what he was cutting was a wooden stake. Seeing this scene, Rudolph's teeth hurt even more. Captain Secco swapped his neck with Cooper's. Living corpse, Cooper is a living corpse. Every time it passes a certain death ending, the living corpse will level up. Cooper got a new neck with 2 circles of sutures up and down his neck. He couldn't die. Like Cooper, Captain Secco also had 2 circles of stitches up and down his neck, but there was still a large gash on his neck that had been bitten by a werewolf. "Thank you, nasty patrolman." "You're welcome, Cooper." Cooper's voice was strange. Cooper was not very old, 2 or 3 years younger than Rudolph. Therefore, the new throat was very thick and made him uncomfortable. Rudolph said, "Come back to the town with me to hide. It's too dangerous in the wild. I will find a way to keep you here for a few days." Cooper shook his head. He touched the stitches on his neck and felt very satisfied. "I am already a level 1 zombie. I will stay in the wild. I want to kill those werewolves." "Hateful patrolman, can you get out of the way first? I have something to do." Rudolph shook his head and took Ivan away from the carriages. The place surrounded by the carriages, where Cooper was emitting bursts of ghost fire. The ghost fire continued to extend and burn on each corpse. This burning was cold and did not burn any clothes or hair. After the weird ceremony, the circus came alive. Captain Secco replaced Cooper's throat, but there was a gap on the throat, and the throat also looked a little thin. Lions and tigers don't need cages, and they follow the trainer more obediently. The trainer's internal organs were all taken out, but it didn't affect his movements. The acrobats threw up several bottles and laughed happily. Ivan shrank behind Rudolph. "What kind of circus is this?" Rudolph looked at these lively but cold scenes and said, "Cooper's Death Circus." The paint on the face of the clown Cooper returned to its original state, but his expression became stiff. Just like Rudolph used the teeth of the zombie, his body would be cold and stiff like a corpse. If it was a real zombie, it could only make a few fixed expressions. A smile became Cooper's last expression. With a smile, he left the main road with his death circus, performing various circuses, and walked into the wilderness outside the road. Next, there is a recommendation, please read it. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 22. It's all a mess. Sir Jakes, the mayor, the Red Priest, Sheriff Claude, the judge, and many other important figures in the town gathered in the police station, and they all had a falling out. Rudolph brought back the news that the elk tribe was attacked, as well as evidence that 3 caravans and a circus were attacked by werewolves on the road. Werewolves appeared in all directions on the outskirts of Leemantown. The trade routes in Leemantown were blocked, the farmers were in danger, and several other Druid tribes kept applying for support. After Rudolph reported the situation, he left the noisy office. He wanted to go to the old police officer baby first to replenish his bullets. 6 alchemical shotguns, 12 alchemical bullets, and some ordinary bullets. Lucky Rudolph, you survived again. Old baby was very happy, even happier than Rudolph. If all patrol officers were as capable as Rudolph, then the police department wouldn't have to always recruit trainee patrol officers. Rudolph said while loading bullets, "Lady Luck's passionate kiss made me suffocate. Fortunately, I escaped fast enough." Rudolph envied old baby very much. Old baby was responsible for managing the alchemical bullets in the police station. After the sheriff approved, old baby would take out the alchemical bullets from the warehouse. Of course, he is a level 1 alchemist and can also make alchemical shotguns himself. The job is very easy and not dangerous at all. Rudolph returned to his house and opened the package he had hidden in the closet. Hidden inside was a revolver that had been obtained on Ivan's family's farm. Rudolph had to do something tonight, and he couldn't use the police station's gun. The police station's gun was too recognizable. This farm revolver was much more ordinary, with a short barrel and a dusty wooden handle. Rudolph sat up in bed again after nightfall. Everyone in the police station knows that patrolman Rudolph likes to go to the bathhouse to soak in the hot springs, and he will come back very late. Since he was going to enjoy himself, Rudolph didn't wear a police uniform and went out wearing an ordinary suit. Opening his pocket watch, Rudolph looked at the time. At 7 o'clock, he can still soak for 3 hours. At 10 o'clock, Rudolph came out of the bathhouse. He walked fast and slowly along the way, and his direction was not fixed. The wide brim of the hat covered Rudolph's expression. When passing by a shadow, Rudolph put on a mask for himself. The mask has a purple scorpion painted on it. Soon, he came to Casino Street. Casino Street, as its name suggests, has 3 casinos in it. If people going to the city of Fabreau settle in the town of Lehman, then the casino is a good place to spend time. After entering the largest casino, Rudolph deftly avoided the dancing or dejected guests and walked towards the stairs of the casino. The gamblers had red eyes, and only a few of them noticed the strange masked man. Instead of going upstairs, he headed to the basement. There is a dark corridor in the basement, and a few lamps hang in the dark corridor. There was a continuous sound of gunshots in the corridor, and more than a dozen guns were pointed at Rudolph. Unfazed, Rudolph continued toward the end of the aisle. There are a lot of them. These dozen guns are also a very powerful force in Lehman Town. Rudolph stopped in front of a door, showing that he knew the place very well. In fact, he was very familiar with it. There were many prisoners in the underground prison of the police station. Some prisoners had interacted with Casino and obtained information about Casino from a dead prisoner. The sheriff's department knows Lehman Town well, better than the criminals realize. Open the door. The casino guard didn't know who the person in front of him was, and he didn't know how to react for a moment. At this time, the door opened from inside the house. Rudolph entered the room. There was only one lamp in the room, and the light shone on a chair, illuminating only the chair. Rudolph walked over, looking unprepared, and sat down on the chair very relaxedly. It took him a little while to get used to it, and then he saw what was going on in the room. There were 4 guards standing at the 4 corners of the room, and there was a table against the wall opposite. Behind the table, there was a fat man sitting, a fat man with a beard. The fat man was casino owner Casino. He spoke first. Tell me, what do you want to do? Many people will come to ask for generous Casino. Casino would always lend them a lot of money and let them relax at the gambling table. The next moment, the generous Casino's pupils suddenly shrank. He heard 4 words. He's still alive. Casino frowned. He knew who the he in this sentence was. Rudolph also knew that Casino knew who he was. The reason for the death of the original Rudolph was simple: he rushed too fast. He was a trainee patrolman who was nothing. During the witch hunting operation, he was the first to break into the stronghold of the level 3 wizard Bloody Salem. Before Rudolph died, he saw the people in the stronghold. A battle broke out in the stronghold, but before the battle between the wizard and the witch hunter, several people had escaped. One of them is Casino in front of him. Casino was running away in a hurry and didn't notice Rudolph, but Rudolph remembered his appearance. He is still alive. Casino immediately thought of the level 3 wizard who was burned to death, Bloody Salem. In the underground world of Lehman Town, the wizard Salem is obviously a very terrifying existence. How do you prove it? Asked the generous Casino. Rudolph did not answer, but stood up and prepared to leave, seeming very disappointed with Casino's stupidity. Wait, Casino was a little flustered, but he still tried his best to hide his panic. I mean, I really want to express my respect to Lord Salem in person. He was very afraid that the person in front of him would leave immediately, which meant that the wizard Salem had lost patience with him. Level 3 wizards are too scary in Lehman Town. Fortunately for Casino, the man wearing a purple scorpion mask stopped in front of him. Rudolph turned around, stood behind the chair, and reached out to rub the back of the chair. Lord Salem is more cautious now. He will not see anyone again. He needs to regain some strength. Casino knew that the wizard Salem was captured by the tribunal and was burned at the stake. However, the wizard Salem was not easy to die. Now, I will contact you on behalf of Teacher Salem. When Teacher Salem becomes a level 4 wizard, he will naturally come to see you. Hearing the title of teacher, Casino knew that the person in front of him might be the wizard apprentice accepted by the Salem wizard. Rudolph said, "Prepare 3 starstones. Teacher Salem needs the starstones recently. Now the choice is in the hands of Casino. Casino can choose not to believe it and see the people in front of him now. However, Casino happened to know more than others, and he had some guesses about the important witchcraft of the Salem wizard. As for the Salem wizard, it is really possible that he is not dead, his witchcraft is too powerful. You can take one now. I have one here and I was going to sell it on the black market. I will buy the remaining 2 on the black market." Rudolph got a starstone and left Casino very satisfied. Please read, collect, recommend, support, and take care of the young seedlings. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 23. That night, the underground world of Lehman Town was terrified. The fact that the level 3 wizard Bloody Saren was still alive frightened a group of bosses like Casino. Rudolph didn't care. He pretended and ran away, taking the starstone. With his familiarity with Lehman Town, Rudolph believed that no one could easily catch up with him. In fact, Casino didn't send anyone to chase him. Rudolph returned to the police station, which was quiet at this time. He began to think about how to improve his ability. From the production method of the level 1 spirit pet crystal, Rudolph learned that in order to make this magic weapon, he must master the magic language of the 2 constellations, Scorpio and Pisces. He stood on the rooftop, looking in the direction of Pisces, and got nothing. Scorpio is so special to Rudolph. As long as he needs it, he can call on the star power of Scorpio at any time and use the ability of Scorpio's magic language at any time. But other constellations, including Pisces, are so unfamiliar, and there is no connection between him and Pisces. Rudolph remembered that the day he mastered the Scorpio witch language Venom was in November, which was the Scorpio month of this world. Rudolph knew very little about wizards, and he didn't dare to ask others for advice. The only thing he knew about Pisces now was March, which was the Pisces month of this world. Is it only when the Pisces month comes that we can try to establish a connection with Pisces? It is now December, the Sagittarius month. Rudolph can't establish a connection with Sagittarius, and he doesn't know where the problem lies. The right to speak is so important, because the 3 apostles of God have designated wizards as the most evil apostles, so Rudolph now has to be like a street rat. He has no teacher, no guidance, and he is slowly groping in the dark alone. January, Capricorn month, nothing happened. In the second half of the night of the full moon in January, Rudolph took Yvonne to the suburbs in the name of patrolling the outskirts of the town, helping Yvonne through the time when she lost her mind on the night of the full moon. February, Aquarius month, still nothing happened. Except for following the sheriff to catch a few werewolves, and helping Yvonne through the full moon night, Rudolph still waited for nothing. Ivan would go to the suburbs only after watching the execution of werewolves at the full moon sacrifice. This increased the risk of being discovered, but Ivan insisted on doing so, and Rudolph had no choice. Casino owner Koshino spent the past 2 months in fear. He didn't get any news about the Salem wizard, as if the person who appeared that night was an illusion. Until March, Rudolph's heart suddenly became restless. He felt it. March, Pisces month. After entering the Pisces month, Rudolph suddenly felt that Pisces was no longer out of reach, as if there was some connection between them. Could it be that every time you learn a constellation witch language, you have to wait until the corresponding constellation month? One day in March, Rudolph took care of everything. The full moon sacrifice was over, and Rudolph didn't have any important tasks. Ivan quietly spent the full moon night again. He chose the easiest day to work in the police station, and also the day with the least people. When midnight came, he took out his pocket watch and checked the time. It was already 12 o'clock in the evening. Going up to the 3rd floor from the underground prison, Rudolph confirmed that Sheriff Claude and old police officer Baby were not in the police station. He took a breath and rested for a while in the room. During this time, Rudolph also caught a mouse in the room. The pet crystal needed a pet, and this mouse was Rudolph's test subject. It was not until 1 o'clock in the middle of the night that Rudolph went up the stairs to the roof. He still had the mouse he had just caught in his hand. Rudolph put the mouse on the ground and let it run around by itself. He began to work on the ground with the star stone. Just like last time, Rudolph used the star stone to draw a large triangle of stars on the ground. In the circle at the top of the large triangle, Rudolph placed his pocket watch. In the 2 circles at the bottom of the triangle, Rudolph placed wizard crystals and druid ornaments. The wizard crystal is a relic left by the level 3 wizard Salem after his death. Level 1 apostles, like level 1 werewolves, will only leave 1 relic after death. The wolf saliva that Rudolph often gets is the relic of the level 1 werewolf. And level 3 apostles like the wizard Salem will leave 3 relics after death. Rudolph has read Salem's report. The witch examiner has taken 3 relics from Salem. Logically, Salem should be dead. But Salem didn't know what method he used. Among the 3 magic tools, 1 was replaced by something else. Rudolph guessed that this was the reason why he could survive from the witch examiner. As for the druid's ornaments, they came from the guard druid of the elk tribe horse farm. Rudolph still stood in the circle of the center of gravity of the astrological triangle and began to stimulate the star power in his body. This time, the center of gravity circle under Rudolph's feet was painted with the symbols of Scorpio and Pisces. Rudolph's star power entered the great triangle from his feet. The powder of the star stone glowed slightly under the starlight. These powders seemed to have life and rolled on the ground like snakes. The powder crawled out from the lines like a long snake, first covering the druid's ornaments. One of the witch words of Scorpio is venom, which is the first witch word Rudolph mastered. Venom also means infection, so Rudolph used the second witch word of Scorpio, infection. The witch language of each constellation is not unique. According to Rudolph's understanding, the witch language of the constellation is more like a language family with similar meanings. The apostle power contained in the druid jewelry is stimulated by the star stone. The stimulated druid power, under the control of the star power, infected the mouse sniffing around on the rooftop. The mouse was controlled by Rudolph. The lines made of starstone powder kept rolling on the ground. The starstone powder crawled out of the ground again and wrapped the wizard crystal. Rudolph felt a little distressed. This is a level 3 wizard crystal. He felt vaguely that this approach was a bit wasteful. Is it a bit of a waste to use a level 3 wizard crystal on a level 1 wizard weapon? Such wizard weapon materials are so precious, but Rudolph can only make do with the level 3 wizard crystal in order to improve his strength. The wizard power contained in the wizard crystal is stimulated by the star power. This is the key to Rudolph's promotion to a level 1 wizard. He needs to prove that he can use the second constellation witch language. The pattern of Pisces is two fish with their tails connected. Rudolph understood the Pisces witch language as entanglement. With the help of the starstone powder, the wizard crystal and the druid accessories became entangled, and also became entangled with the mice controlled by the druid accessories. At this time, Rudolph used all his star power to strengthen this entanglement. The lines formed by the starstone powder began to wriggle, and they began to accumulate on the ground. The starstone powder wrapped the wizard crystal and the druid accessories and accumulated towards the top ring of the astrological triangle. In that ring, Rudolph placed an ordinary pocket watch. Level 1 Spirit Pet Crystal, this is the witchcraft he wants to make. The key to this witchcraft is to infect the druid accessories with the Scorpio witch language, use the Pisces witch language to establish entanglement between the wizard crystal and the druid accessories, and then combine the two apostle relics into one. The starstone powder has entered the ring where the pocket watch is placed with two magic tools. Soon, the wizard crystal and druid accessories entered the pocket watch and disappeared. The starstone powder on the ground completely disappeared, and there was no trace of it on the stone slab. The mouse didn't know what had just happened. It was still sniffing around, not knowing whether it was looking for food or finding the way back to the mouse nest. Rudolph wiped the sweat from his forehead. Although there was no big movement, Rudolph seemed to be dehydrated. His star power had been exhausted. Rudolph walked to the pocket watch and picked it up. He breathed a sigh of relief. He finally completed this level 1 magic tool, and he also successfully mastered the Pisces magic language entanglement and became a level 1 wizard. Even though his strength is still very weak now, he has his own magic tool. Rudolph couldn't wait to open the pocket watch. There was a thin inner plate on the inside of the pocket watch cover. The outer circle is a thin stone ring, which looks very delicate. This is a ring-shaped object left by the druid ornaments. Inside the ring is a crystal surface, which is crystal clear. Rudolph inputs star power into the pocket watch, and soon the crystal changes. The pet crystal, like a pocket screen, shows the picture that the mouse can see. The druid ornaments can control the mouse under the effect of the witch language infection. The wizard crystal can share the mouse's vision under the effect of the witch language entanglement. In this way, the mouse was made into a pet by Rudolph, which is why this technique is called the pet technique. Rudolph did not rush back, but opened the door of the stairwell first. The mouse disappeared from the stairwell under Rudolph's control. Rudolph returned to the rooftop, where he sat leisurely on the chair on the rooftop, looking at the pocket watch in his hand. This perspective is so wonderful, almost close to the ground, looking up at everything, and looking at everything also seems abnormally huge. The mouse went to the third floor and returned to Rudolph's room. Everything in the room was the same as before. The mouse went to Yvonne's room. Yvonne was lying on the table in a daze. In her hand was her family photo. This poor girl was strong and didn't show anything during the day, but she didn't talk much. But at night, she couldn't help but think of her home. Yvonne looked at the family photo for a while, then put it away and put it in her closet. There was also a police uniform hanging in Yvonne's closet. It was Rudolph's police uniform. For some reason, Yvonne didn't return it to him and hung it in her closet. Yvonne carefully put her family photo in the inner pocket of Rudolph's police uniform. From beginning to end, Yvonne didn't notice anything unusual in her room. A mouse squatted in the corner, silently watching everything in the room. The mouse left the third floor and went to the second floor. There was no one on the second floor, and the office and conference room were pitch black. The mouse went to the first floor again and saw the policewoman Kelida working the night shift in the reception hall. While working, she was applying skincare products that Rudolph didn't recognize on her face. Isn't this a pure waste of money, staying up late and taking care of skin at the same time? The mouse finally went to the basement, where two newly recruited trainee patrolmen were dozing off. In the underground prison, there was a sudden squeaking sound of mice, but the two trainee patrolmen didn't take it seriously. Rudolph closed his pocket watch, which was a good experience. He waited on the rooftop for a long time and finally waited for an owl. Opening the pocket watch, the owl landed on Rudolph's shoulder as if it had met a druid. Soon, the pet crystal could share the owl's vision. The owl flew away from the rooftop of the police station and circled over the town. Casino owner Casino left his nest and went to an inconspicuous house. He didn't know who he was going to discuss something with. Rudolph remembered the house number of this house, number 13, Paget Street. The owl's eyesight is really good, even the house number can be seen. Rudolph found a familiar person, Sheriff Claude, who left Sir Jacques' mansion late at night, with a tired face. Sir is the lowest level of nobles, only slightly better than a knight without a title, but Sir Jacques is already the most powerful person in Lehman Town. He controls the 5 largest farms outside the town. Rudolph took a breath. Is the sheriff going to find the knight or the lady of the night? Is he playing so hard? The owl followed Sheriff Claude in the sky until Sheriff Claude knocked on Mrs. Betsy's window. Rudolph took a second breath of cold air. Are the sheriff's kidneys made of water pumps? Sheriff Claude has a special skill. He can always know which lady's husband is not at home tonight. It is really an enviable ability. Rudolph is willing to exchange all his magic weapons for this ability. He enviously watched Mrs. Betsy open the window, kiss the sheriff first, and then let the sheriff jump in through the window. The owl circled over Lehman Town. Compared with the owl's flying ability, Lehman Town is too small. Rudolph played with his new toy for a long time with great interest. Until the owl was a little tired, Rudolph closed the pocket watch and let the owl go to find food by itself. The star map has a certain storage function, but it can only store relics, not magic weapons. In other words, if Rudolph wants to use the magic weapon, he must be careful and try to choose a place where no one is. With the use of the pet pocket watch, the information about the pet pocket watch that the star map knows automatically appears in Rudolph's consciousness. The most important point is that the pet pocket watch needs to be used with caution in front of a level 4 wizard and a level 4 druid. The main material of the pet pocket watch is the level 3 wizard crystal, which is very high. It seems that only level 4 wizards and level 4 druids can discover the surveillance of the pet crystal. It is undoubtedly a great waste to use the level 3 wizard crystal on this auxiliary function pet pocket watch, but Rudolph can use this pocket watch for a long time. Level 4 wizards, that is a powerful existence that you don't know when you will meet. From today, the entire town of Lehman is under Rudolph's peeping, no, under Rudolph's surveillance. The whole picture is hung, talking about the pet crystal. 2 in 1, please read and recommend. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 24. Rudolph, can you work hard? Why are you always looking at your watch? Are you so idle? Policewoman Kelida has her hands full. There are reports of werewolf attacks everywhere, and she doesn't know where to start. But Rudolph was lying on a chair with his legs on the table, looking relaxed. More importantly, Rudolph would open his pocket watch from time to time, as if he was anxious to get off work. What's the use of being anxious? The police chief said not to go outside the town for the time being. That's to deliver food rations to the werewolves. Of course, a patrol officer like me has nothing to do. Work, paddling, looking at your watch, every second you feel comfortable. Policewoman Kelida hurriedly organized the documents and handed a large pile of documents to Yvonne, who had just come over, asking Yvonne to give them to Chief Claude. If you hadn't really fought werewolves several times, I would have reported it to the sheriff and asked him to deduct your salary. Rudolph picked up the coffee indifferently, closed his eyes, and began to think about his spiritual pet family bucket. For daily use, Rudolph prepared a dozen sparrows. The sparrows could fly around during the day and observe where Rudolph wanted to see. Sparrows are energetic and well suited to their jobs. For night use, Rudolph prepared 3 owls. Owls have very good eyesight and can clearly see the ground at night. There are some owls standing on the rooftops, tree branches, and street lamps in Lehmantown. This is very reasonable. There is also the deep type, where Rudolph prepares a nest of rats. If there is any need, Rudolph will let the mouse enter a certain building and then observe the situation in the building carefully. However, mice are the most unreliable spiritual pets and are sometimes caught by other people's cats. At this moment, Rudolph saw a group of people entering the police station from Sparrow One's view. This group of people were well dressed and followed by retinues. Rudolph immediately sat up straight, pretended to pick up a document and frowned in thought. Policewoman Kelida has just completed her work in stages and is resting on the chair. After a while, the police chief suddenly walked into the office. "Rudolph, come to my office." "Okay." Rudolph put down the heavy work in his hands, stood up and walked towards the sheriff. When the sheriff left, he turned back and said to Kelida, "Kelida, the police station is so busy right now, don't be lazy." Kelida felt aggrieved. She had obviously been busy all morning, and Rudolph had obviously been playing all morning. How could she become the lazy one just because of her performance in these few minutes? When Rudolph passed by Kelida, he pretended to shake his head at Kelida, as if he couldn't stand this lazy behavior and didn't bother to say anything, which made Kelida even more angry. Information is so important. Whoever masters the information will take the initiative. Rudolph entered the sheriff's office and found that there were already many people here. One of the most attractive eyes is a young woman wearing armor, with blonde hair and a smile. "Let me introduce to you. This is the most experienced patrolman in the police station. He has participated in 1 witch hunt and 2 werewolf attacks." Sergeant Claude first introduced to the young woman, Patrolman Ludolph. "He will take charge of the police department this time." The sheriff turned his head again. "Rudolph, this is Sir Jacques' daughter, Miss Jennifer." "Hello, Miss Jennifer." Sir Jacques is a knight, so his daughter is at least a knight's squire. This is the first knight Rudolph has seen. He wonders what abilities an apostle like a knight has. Jennifer glanced at Rudolph, who was unremarkable except for his good looks, and asked, "Is Patrolman Rudolph an alchemist or an alchemist's assistant?" "No, Rudolph is an ordinary person." "However, Jennifer Knight, Rudolph is definitely more powerful than old baby. This is the philosophy of our alchemist association. Only by arming enough ordinary people can we gain the greatest power." After hearing Sheriff Claude's explanation, Miss Jennifer didn't say much. Rudolph just raised his eyebrows slightly and didn't say much. He seemed to be looked down upon by this woman. Sheriff Claude sat behind the desk and took out a list. "Rudolph, there are so many werewolves in the wilderness this time, and the police department can no longer handle them. Sir Jacques decided to send a cavalry team to deal with the werewolves in the wild. Your mission is to serve as Sir Jacques' guide to the elk tribe." Rudolph nodded and took the police document. "Miss Jennifer, when do we leave?" "Tomorrow." With that, Jennifer left the sheriff's office. Rudolph looked at Jennifer's straight back, turned around and asked the police chief, "Is this Miss Jennifer a knight?" "No, it's the knight's retinue." "He's just a knight's retinue, not as good as Rudolph." "Rudolph is still a level 1 apostle." "Then can I just be the guide?" Sheriff Claude nodded. "Of course, you are just a guide. Since Sir wants to intervene, let him be responsible." Rudolph nodded and left the sheriff's office. This night, Rudolph once again wore a mask and walked into Casino. Casino still owes Rudolph 2 star stones. If you say you get 3 for free, you get 3 for free. Anything less is considered to be owed to Rudolph. This time, in Casino's office, there was no longer a lamp shining on the chair like a prisoner's trial, but a new layout. A large sofa and red wine on the coffee table. Cautionneau couldn't see Rudolph's expression, so he couldn't guess anything. He only saw the wizard apprentice in the purple scorpion mask sitting motionless, wondering what he was thinking. Rudolph was embarrassed. He wanted to take the opportunity to taste Cautionneau's collection of red wine, but his mask covered his entire face. Isn't it not so decent to take off the mask for drinking? Rudolph finally knew why Zorro and Batman only covered the upper half of their faces. It turned out that it was more practical. Cautionneau had guessed the identity of the visitor, who might be the new wizard apprentice of Salem Wizard. Salem Wizard was hit by the Judgment Bureau once, and now he must be very weak, so he needs the wizard apprentice to help him out. This move is very useful. Killing the wizard apprentice in front of him has no effect. Bloody Saren must be hiding somewhere and recovering his strength in secret. Cautionneau presented 2 star stones. This is the star stone that the wizard Saren wants. I have bought it on the black market. How to get to the black market? Cautionneau didn't expect that the person in front of him would ask so directly. Black market, didn't the wizard Saren say it? Cautionneau stared at Rudolph, waiting for Rudolph's answer. He wanted to know what the wizard Saren was like now. Rudolph was not interested in playing a trial game with Cautionneau. He said directly. Generous Cautionneau, don't go to number 13 Pudge Street to exchange opinions with those 3 people. Such things are not very meaningful. Cautionneau's head was covered with cold sweat. He guessed in an instant that one of the 3 people must be a traitor and turned to the wizard Saren more thoroughly than him. So, how do we get to the black market? Casino said hurriedly, Dear wizard apprentice, the black market is in Fabreau City, there is no black market in Lehman Town. If you need it, I can give you a black market identity token. Fabreau City, Rudolph is not going to go there for the time being. He picked up the starstone, stood up and prepared to leave. I'll come to get the black market identity token after a while. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 25. Rudolph and Yvonne were waiting outside the town, and they saw a large cavalry team. Rudolph learned from the sheriff that Sir Jakes was now a level 1 knight, and this cavalry team was led by the Sir himself. Behind him were his 3 children, and Jennifer, who had met the day before, was among them. These 3 were knight squires and had just embarked on the path of apostles. The 4 fathers and sons were equally proud, riding on horses and looking into the distance, as if thinking about something that would affect the survival of mankind in the next 1,000 years. Jennifer and his 2 younger brothers, each followed by 4 or 5 cavalrymen, who also rode tall war horses. Rudolph sighed at the Sir's amazing wealth, nearly 20 cavalrymen, such a large team, the annual cost was no less than that of the police station. Rudolph and Yvonne stood on one side of the road, not knowing what to do now. Should they go up and flatter him? With so many horses, should they flatter from the back to the front, or from the front to the back? If we flatter the Sir from the front to the back, first flatter the Sir's horse, will the Sir's horse be happy? In the end, Rudolph did not move. Jennifer rode slowly to Rudolph's side. Alchemist Spearman, you can lead the way. Alchemist Spearman, this is an ancient name. That was the Constitutional War, that is, the name given to the alchemists' army by the royal family in the War of Resistance against the royal family. Before Rudolph asked about the details of this action, Jennifer had returned to her position, as if saying one more word to Rudolph was a waste. Rudolph turned to the front with helplessness and walked towards the direction of the elk tribe. Behind him were bursts of horse hooves, and these cavalrymen did not speak, and Rudolph was happy to be idle. Starting in the morning, Rudolph arrived at the forest where the elk tribe was at around 4 p.m. I still saw the horse farm outside the forest first. There were only white skeletons left of the horses in the horse farm. I don't know what gnawed them clean. Rudolph was about to enter the forest when he heard the sound of horse hooves from behind. Jennifer came closer. Alchemist spearman, you don't need to move forward. Next, it's the battlefield of the knights' cavalry. You just need to follow the cavalry. We knights are different from alchemists. We won't let ordinary people set foot in dangerous places first. Protecting the weak is the honor of knights. Weak. Who is the weak? Could it be Rudolph? Rudolph was speechless. No wonder these knights are getting less and less powerful now. He thinks these knights have some problems in their brains. Proud knights, their ideas are indeed very different from those of alchemists. Rudolph still prefers the alchemist's approach. He and Ivan retreated to one side of the road and signaled the strong men to go first. Rudolph and the others followed the cavalry and walked slowly in the forest. The cavalry in front had sent out scouts, which made the large army move very slowly. Compared with the serious and nervous cavalry, Rudolph and Ivan were much more relaxed. Rudolph's body swayed slowly with the warhorse, and he took out his pocket watch from time to check. Daily sparrows flew through the forest, and Rudolph could see farther and wider than the cavalry scouts. Werewolves rarely act during the day, so there was no need to be so nervous at this time. Rudolph was not in a hurry, and Ivan didn't think about these things. She just needed to listen to Rudolph's arrangements. Sure enough, until they entered the elk tribe, they didn't see any enemies. When the team entered the elk tribe, the whole team was even more silent. The ground was full of corpses of druids from the elk tribe. The skeletons of these corpses were full of tooth marks, bitten by sharp teeth, and it was horrible. Some big trees had fallen, and the tree houses on the big trees were smashed. Some tree houses were still on the big trees, but the tree houses were in tatters, and the windows and beams were scattered all over the place, and they could fall down at any time. A good druid tribe was destroyed by werewolves. Jennifer found Rudolph again, who was looking up at the tree house. Alchemist spearman, do you know the direction of the werewolf tribe? Miss Jennifer, my name is Rudolph. Spearman Rudolph, do you know the direction of the werewolf tribe? I am Patrolman Rudolph. Patrolman Rudolph, do you know the direction of the werewolf tribe? I don't know. If Jazz's father wasn't there, Jennifer really wanted to teach the patrolman in front of her a lesson. Rudolph looked up at the sky and said, I suggest that we prepare defenses at night and search for the werewolf tribe tomorrow. It's getting late now. You don't need to teach me how to do things. Night combat is the most important training subject for knights. Jennifer was not interested in answering the question of the patrolman in front of her. She raised her mouth mockingly and turned away. When he was at the police station, Rudolph didn't feel the apostle's contempt for ordinary people. But in Jazz's family, this feeling was very strong. The team moved forward again, and Rudolph and Ivan followed reluctantly. Rudolph had already switched his daytime pet to nighttime one, and 3 owls were constantly scouting around him. Before Rudolph found the werewolf, he heard the faint howl of a wolf. Ivan's ears were more sensitive, so Rudolph turned around and asked, which direction? Ivan immediately pointed in a direction. An owl flew in the direction Ivan pointed. A werewolf stood on the top of a hill in the distance, looking in the direction of the knights. Not only that, this werewolf was still howling non-stop, transmitting information in the werewolf way. Soon, the owl found the second, third, and fourth werewolves. The wolf howls became more and more, and not only did Rudolph become nervous, but the cavalrymen in front couldn't help holding their breath after hearing the wolf howls one after another. Rudolph felt that if the cavalry team continued to advance at night, surrounded by werewolves, it would implicate both Rudolph and Ivan. He urged the horses and moved forward. Facing Rudolph, who appeared rashly, the Jazz still didn't turn his head. Jennifer frowned and watched Rudolph walk towards her. Respected knight, the wolf howling sounds around are not right. There are wolf howls coming from more than 3 directions. The wolf howls in each direction are not made by a single werewolf. It is very likely that there are more than 10 werewolves in each direction, which means that there are at least 3 werewolf tribes around us. Jennifer still didn't care. What about 3 werewolf tribes? Rudolph had dealt with druids before, and druids had told him a lot about werewolves. He had to explain, this is very abnormal. Werewolves have a sense of territory, and it is rare to see werewolf tribes working together. This is impossible under normal circumstances, unless... Jennifer still didn't care, unless what? Unless the 3 werewolf tribes have a common alpha wolf. And the alpha wolf of multiple werewolf tribes is at least a level 2 werewolf. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 26. Level 2 Werewolf. Rudolph finally saw a flash of panic on Jennifer's face. These young ladies living in the castle may have only seen 1 or 2 werewolves during the full moon sacrifice ceremony. Those werewolves are still level 1 werewolves. Level 2 werewolves are already synonymous with danger in the wilderness. Moreover, our enemies may be 30-50 werewolves, and the number is also very terrifying. 50 werewolves. Jennifer continued to be in disbelief. This number was indeed too many. If surrounded by so many werewolves, the cavalry would lose its greatest advantage, speed. What's your name? Sir Jakes came to the side without saying a word. Rudolph. Jazz's voice startled Rudolph. Sir Jakes looked cold. Patrol Rudolph, whether your guess is true or not, if this were during a war, I would not hesitate to execute you for disrupting military morale. Now, you are very lucky. It was not during the war and you escaped. Rudolph frowned, not knowing what to say. Seeing Sir's father at this time, Jennifer also found her courage. I know that Patrolman Claude killed a level 2 werewolf not long ago. I think our Jazz Castle can do the same. This is the most terrifying hallucination. It can be done by others, even by me. Sheriff Claude has been a level 2 alchemist for more than 10 years. He has extraordinary physical fitness whether on or off the bed. Sheriff Claude can kill level 2 werewolves of the same level. What do these knights think? So can they? Even knowing that he might encounter a level 2 werewolf, the people from Jazz Castle came anyway. Rudolph didn't say anything more. Maybe Sir Jakes had his own considerations. He returned to his seat without saying a word. Good words can never persuade a damn ghost, and Rudolph felt that his reminder was a bit unnecessary. He returned to the end of the line and pointed in a direction. Yvonne, we will go there in a moment. Rudolph was about to want to run in that direction, but immediately gave up. During the Owl's investigation, there were again 2 werewolf tribes in that direction, both were level 1 werewolves with wolf servants. There are a total of 5 werewolf tribes, and the number of werewolves is a bit exaggerated. The cavalry in front of him had begun to accelerate, and the horses' hooves hit the ground. Rudolph hurriedly chose to follow. He kept using his owl to find the weaknesses of the werewolf circle. Jennifer's face was serious at this time, and she couldn't help but ask Jazz, Father, why don't we come to find the werewolf during the day? Werewolves will not fight us during the day. We can only encounter werewolves at night. It's time for me to try to break through. This is a perfect opportunity. Seeing Jazz's determined look, Jennifer couldn't say anything more. Find a direction to break out of the encirclement first, leave the forest first, and lure the werewolf to fight me on the plains. After the knight's order was given, the night team quickly turned around. This team did not go deep into the forest for long. They were not far from the edge of the forest. This is where Sir Jake's confidence lies. As long as they leave the forest and reach the plains outside the forest, the cavalry is not afraid of any werewolves. The night team began to rush out of the forest quickly, and the speed was already very fast. Thankfully, since this is the edge of the forest, the woods are not dense. Rudolph breathed a sigh of relief. This knight still had some brains and rushed directly to the werewolf without shouting any weird slogans, as long as he was not a pure idiot. Behind the knight's team, gunshots suddenly sounded. Rudolph had already seen a fleeting shadow in the jungle, and the werewolf was very close. The gunshot was Rudolph's attempt to scare the werewolves, and the gunshot also increased the tension in the entire team. On both sides of the knight team, 2 werewolf tribes appeared. On each side, there were more than a dozen werewolves walking through the woods. The werewolves rushed through the bushes with great force, and the swishing sound made people feel the strong pressure. Rudolph motioned to Ivan to hurry up and follow the ordinary cavalry. The werewolves quickly investigated the situation and found that the ordinary cavalry was the weakest. They took the lead in targeting the ordinary cavalry. Werewolves rushed out of the woods one after another and rushed towards the ordinary cavalry. At this moment, to Rudolph's surprise, Sir's 3 children actually slowed down. The knight's retinue, like the wizard's apprentice, is an apostle who has just started. The 3 Jennifer siblings did not speed up their escape, but chose to take risks with the ordinary cavalry, which surprised Rudolph. Does the knight really think so? Protect the weak? Some werewolves had already pounced on the ordinary cavalry, and soon 1 or 2 ordinary cavalry were thrown to the ground by the werewolves. The wolf fangs opened and closed, fighting against the cavalry's iron can-like armor. The cavaliers began to quickly change their formations. One knight's retinue, with 4 or 5 cavalry, formed a triangle formation. Then this triangle formation began to quickly fight back against the werewolves. The physique of the knight's retinue is obviously much stronger than that of the ordinary cavalry, their movements are faster and fiercer, and they are also powerful and heavy. The 3 Jennifer siblings were responsible for breaking through, while the cavalry on both sides wielded broadswords to attack the werewolves. For a moment, the team led by the 3 knight retinues was on par with the werewolves of the 2 tribes. The werewolves, except for the initial raid that achieved some results, could no longer gain an advantage. Rudolph and Ivan were a little embarrassed now. They were not in any of the knights' retinues. However, Rudolph and Ivan tried to squeeze into the middle. They stayed in the middle of several knights' escorts, which was safer. Rudolph heard that a battle had also taken place in front of Sir Jacques. There came the howl of a werewolf, which seemed to be beaten badly. After a short chase of more than 10 minutes, the knights rushed out of the forest. 3 bodies of ordinary cavalry were left in the forest. The sound of horse hooves gradually became smaller. The knight made a gesture to quiet the knights and then began to slowly change the formation. The knight stood in the front, and behind him were his 3 children. This was the only noble family in Lehman Town. Behind Jennifer's 3 siblings, there were cone-shaped cavalry formations. The knights formed a large cone as a whole, facing the forest, and the atmosphere was quiet. Rudolph and Ivan still stayed at the back of the cavalry. Rudolph was full of curiosity about the knight's abilities. At this moment, a shadowy shadow appeared at the edge of the forest. One by one, the werewolves also came to the edge of the forest. These 5 werewolf tribes stood at the edge of the forest like 5 fingers, in a semi-encirclement, confronting the knight team. Perhaps the werewolves were confused, wondering why the knights in the human town invaded the new territory they had just occupied at night. The knight raised his broadsword and swung it forward. Knight. Charge. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 27. After a brief confrontation, the wolf howls of level 2 werewolves sounded behind the 5 wolf packs. This wolf howl seemed to be some kind of order, and the 5 werewolf tribes instantly rushed out of the forest and rushed towards the cavalry. Sir Jacques was the first to raise his sword, and a faint white light shone on his sword. In the night, this faint light seemed so charming, as if these broadswords had mastered the power to illuminate the darkness. Like the Lord, everyone behind him raised their broadswords, except Rudolph and Ivan. Ivan, next time we go out with the knights, we must also bring a sword, otherwise we will seem to be out of place. The cavalrymen all raised their broadswords. Rudolph and Ivan had nothing to raise. Ivan was better, her shotgun was very long, pretending to be like a long sword. Rudolph couldn't raise a revolver to the sky, that was too stupid. The sheriffs only wore revolvers, which gave Rudolph an illusion, and he felt that he should do the same. He decided to carry his shotgun with him in the future to deal with some special situations. He couldn't forget his old love shotgun just because his new love revolver was easy to use. Facing a large group of werewolves, Rudolph didn't want to be different from others and be easily targeted by werewolves. The cavalry began to charge and charged directly at the werewolves. The war horses trampled the ground, and the werewolves approached quickly. The werewolves' pupils became clearer and clearer under the moonlight, and the air was stagnant and suffocating. Rudolph could see the contempt in the werewolves' pupils. The number gap was too big. The number of werewolves was more than twice that of the cavalry. Rudolph stared at Sir Jakes and his 3 children in front of him. This was a precious opportunity to understand the knights. Those nobles stayed in their own manners and would not be easily seen. Soon, Rudolph understood the ability of the knights' squires. The knights' squires should be physically strengthened. They wore heavy armor, but they were flexible and did not see exhaustion in a short time. When fighting werewolves, the knights' squires were obviously much faster than ordinary cavalrymen. Wearing heavy armor, Jennifer and her 2 brothers were more agile than Rudolph, who was only wearing a police uniform, which means that they are very strong. In addition to their extraordinary physical strength, the 3 children of the knight can also make their war horses stronger, which is beyond Rudolph's expectation. The war horses of the knight's squires are also stronger than ordinary horses. If the knight's squires are trapped in the siege of werewolves, the war horses can instantly jump more than 3 meters away and leave the encirclement. This is obviously not a problem of breed. It should be some special method of the knights that can enhance the ability of war horses. No horse can be so flexible and explosive when the man and horse are fully armored. Sir Jacques in the front is so powerful that Rudolph feels terrible. The faint white light emitted by the broadsword has a very strong visual effect. The broadsword quickly cuts through the air to form a halo. This visual effect may have been gradually improved by the knights, which can greatly boost morale on the battlefield. Moreover, the broadsword became sharper and faster. When the sword of an ordinary cavalryman hits a werewolf, it will only leave a cut on the werewolf, but the sword of the knight's squire can almost cut the werewolf's bones. The werewolf, which was broken into 2 pieces, wailed on the ground and tried to piece together its body, which made the werewolf lose its fighting power instantly. 3 level 1 werewolves surrounded Sir Jacques, but they couldn't break Sir Jacques' armor. The wolf teeth that could easily bite off bones only left some small pits on the knight's armor, and could not hurt Sir Jacques. In contrast, Sir Jacques' broadsword can easily leave terrible wounds on the werewolf. One sword brought out a lot of blood and a lot of broken limbs. Level 1 werewolves had to fight in turns to keep a chance to recover from their wounds. If this is the case, Sir Jacques does have the capital to be proud in front of the werewolves. Very strong. Sir Jakes fought 3 level 1 werewolves alone. Not only did he not lose, but he did not seem to be in a very tight situation. The knight is worthy of being an apostle who holds the highest authority in the kingdom. He is balanced in offense and defense and very strong. The knight's squires and knights are not afraid of werewolves, but the cavalrymen are not so lucky when facing nearly 50 level 1 werewolves. The werewolves circled around the cavalrymen, and the cavalrymen were driven like a herd of buffaloes on the grassland. They had strength but did not dare to rush towards the predators. And the predators always look for the weakest in the cavalry team. Several werewolves pounced on them and pulled a cavalryman off the horse. It was all thanks to the knight's 3 children. They were no worse than the werewolves in strength and physical strength. They swung their broadswords and could always chop off a werewolf's head after a few swings. The werewolf whose head was chopped off had no recovery ability and died tragically under the horse's hooves. Rudolph and Ivan tried to get into the center of the cavalry team. To Rudolph's surprise, the cavalrymen did not seem to object to Rudolph and Ivan doing this. After a moment, Rudolph realized that he was a gigolo. Rudolph forgot that Ivan was now a policewoman. Knights always have to be gentlemanly in front of women. How could a beautiful lady be surrounded by werewolves? As for Rudolph, he was just an annoying guard of the beautiful lady. In the eyes of so many people, Ivan certainly could not transform, so she just used a shotgun to bombard the approaching werewolves. Just when Rudolph thought that the knights and the werewolves would continue to stalemate like this, constantly using cavalry to exchange the lives of the werewolves around him suddenly went crazy. The werewolves began to attack without fear of pain. Although the wounds could be healed, they would still hurt. The werewolves no longer even covered their weaknesses, and did not even mind exposing their necks during the battle. Something happened. Rudolph looked at the forest, and his scalp numbed for a moment, and the hair on the back of his head stood up. At the edge of the forest, next to two dark tree trunks, stood a werewolf. From the muscle lines and the outline, it was a level 2 werewolf. The last time Rudolph met a level 2 werewolf at Ivan's house, but he was in a hurry at that time and did not pay too much attention. Seeing the level 2 werewolf again at this time, he instantly felt a sense of oppression. Taller than the level 1 werewolf, with wider shoulders, thicker arms, and sharp wolf claws hanging down to the sides of the body to the knees. The claws of the wolf extend about 10 centimeters, like a thick dagger. The wolf claws of the level 2 werewolf are also called wolf blades because of their destructive power. In the werewolf fight, claw attacks are very important. The level 2 werewolf strengthens this attack method, which makes people afraid. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 28. The dark silhouette, the drooping wolf blade, and the yellow-brown wolf pupils made people panic in the dark night. Team up. Chain formation. The sudden madness of the werewolves made Sir Jacques briefly confused, and he immediately realized that their enemy was really a level 2 werewolf. Level 2 werewolves did not seem to make a level 1 knight like Sir Jacques panic. 2 level 1 werewolves had fallen under his feet, and in a short period of time, he killed 2 apostles of the same level. Rudolph did not know where Sir Jacques' confidence was, but Rudolph had ordered the owl to pass on the information. He felt that he could not handle it and had to prepare a backup plan. An owl walked through the forest without any sound, and soon it found its target. After the knight's order ended, all the knight's followers and cavalry gathered around the knight. The surrounding werewolves certainly would not let the knights get their wish, and they pounced on the knight's followers and cavalry even more frantically. Rudolph and Ivan had to follow the other cavalrymen to squeeze towards the knight. Soon, a triangular cone formation was formed around the knight. The knight stood in the front, with his 3 children behind him, and then the cavalrymen from the knight's castle. Rudolph and Ivan stayed carefully in the center of the cavalry. The cavalrymen on the periphery were still fighting with the werewolves around them. They waved their weapons and tried to drive the werewolves away. The level 2 werewolf moved first. The level 2 werewolf walked out of the shadows and revealed his figure. The faint moonlight shone on the werewolf's body. Although it was a bone claw, it gave people an unusually sharp feeling. Guardian chain. Jennifer's heart was in her throat. She was shocked to hear that the knight's father directly used the knight's strongest skill. Rudolph felt a little more at ease when he heard the words guardian chain. He thought this skill was to protect the relatively weak cavalrymen. The next moment, dense translucent chains with a faint glow shot out from the back of the knight. These chains hit every person and every horse behind him accurately. Now all the people and horses were connected to the jez with a translucent chain like a ghost. The horse under Rudolph suddenly lost control and rushed towards the jez. And the jez was also rushing forward, and the jez on the horseback was getting more and more powerful. Accompanying it was weakness. Rudolph was weak, and he felt that this guardian chain seemed to be absorbing Rudolph's physical strength and spirit. Where the chain was connected to his abdomen, the muscles were twitching, and his physical strength and spirit seemed to be draining from the chain in his abdomen. He only felt that it was difficult to support his chest when he was breathing. The chest became extremely heavy, and the body became extremely heavy. Is this why the Jazz raised so many cavalry and war horses? Rudolf then remembered that the most famous emperors in history were proud of how many cavalry they had. If the emperor had 100,000 cavalry, could he jump 2 or even 3 levels? Level 2 werewolves also saw the abnormality of the Jazz. It was obvious that the Jazz's strength was improving. This was the purpose of the Jazz challenging the level 2 werewolves. After all, knights could only be promoted in battle. And there was a shortcut for the promotion of knights, that is, guardian chains. Level 2 werewolves rushed to the Jazz quickly, trying to break the Jazz's accumulated strength in the shortest time. Rudolf saw that the horse had begun to spit white foam. The Jazz could not only absorb people's physical strength and spirit, but also absorbed horses. The limbs were sore, and the eyes could not even focus. Compared with Rudolf, Ivan beside him seemed to be in better condition, because Ivan's werewolf body was much stronger than Rudolf. But the cavalry in front of them, although they were off-duty and trained every day, not everyone's body was stronger than the apostles. Several cavalrymen fell off their horses one after another. The knights who fell off their horses had only one result, that is, they were bitten to pieces by the werewolves who rushed over. They did not die at the hands of the werewolves, but died at the knights' knight ability. Even some weak cavalrymen had abnormal depressions on their cheeks, and their cheekbones became extremely obvious in a short period of time. If they continued to guard, they would be in danger of becoming skeletons. The knight's followers also began to stagger, and the 3 children of the knight obviously became slow in their movements. The result was that Sir Jacques' sword swing was full of power. Rudolf finally understood that guarding the chain was a knight's ability to gather collective strength. The first charge of the knight directly smashed the level 2 werewolf with one sword. Rudolf watched the level 2 werewolf being smashed away, and his heart was full of shock. With the strength of a level 1 knight, he actually achieved such a degree. You know, werewolves are also apostles of physical enhancement. The level 2 werewolf was directly smashed more than 30 meters away by the knight's broadsword. Then, the cavalry began to turn, adjusted the formation, and faced the level 2 werewolf again. The entire cavalry became a whole, in exchange for a wound on the shoulder of the level 2 werewolf. The wound healed quickly, and soon it was as if nothing had happened. The Jazz looked gloomy, he was still not used to this power that surpassed the level 1 knight. The cone-shaped cavalry accelerated again and rushed towards the level 2 werewolf. The level 2 werewolf roared, and the other werewolves rushed towards the cavalry desperately, trying to stop the cavalry. They stood in front of the cavalry, biting the horses' legs from the side, and pounced into the air one by one, pounced on the cavalry on the horses. This cavalry charge formation was so unstoppable that even if the cavalry was dying quickly, they were still charging. The level 2 werewolf bent its hind legs, and its legs burst out with great power, shooting his body into the air. With Rudolf's vision, he could only see a black shadow pounce on the knight. The knight and the level 2 werewolf collided fiercely again. When the werewolf stopped, Rudolf could see what was happening in front of him. Each wolf claw has 3 claw blades, and the wolf blade on the werewolf's left hand pierced the knight's abdomen. The knight's reinforced thick armor could not stop the wolf blade at all. The knight's sword had even sunk into the werewolf's neck, but the depth was only a shallow 1 or 2 centimeters. The claw blade on the other hand of the werewolf blocked the broadsword that the knight chopped down from the side at the critical moment. This was not fatal to the werewolf. Ha! Ah! The knight suddenly shouted, and then the guarding chain on his back burst into a brighter light. The death of the cavalry and the death of the warhorse forced the knight to extract more power from the remaining people. And his breakthrough was just a little bit away. Rudolf looked down at his abdomen, and he felt his abdomen tighten again, as if something was about to be pulled out. The abdominal muscles ached and his whole body was sore, as if he had just run 10 kilometers. This was far beyond his limit. Rudolf could no longer sit still, and he staggered and fell off the horse. The police station's horse was also connected by the guarding chain, and the horse also fell down and pressed on Rudolf's legs. What kind of guarding is this? Yvonne saw Rudolf fall off the horse, and she wanted to turn over and get off the horse to protect Rudolf. But her horse fell first. Her horse also pressed down one of her legs. Yvonne's physique was stronger than that of a man, but she couldn't even pull out her legs at this time, and her physical strength was also seriously lost. The surrounding werewolves were about to rush forward. Rudolf heard a thunderous roar in front of him. Breakthrough. Level 2 Knight. The Jez was just a little bit away from breaking through to become a level 2 Knight. At this time, the guardian chain began to drain not only Rudolf's physical strength, but also Rudolf's star power. Damn, Rudolf could already feel the star power in his body flowing to the guardian chain. A werewolf had already bitten Rudolf's throat, and Rudolf used up his last bit of strength to protect his arm on his throat. The werewolf only bit his arm. Rudolf knew that he was going to die for this damn Jez. Even if Jez could beat the level 2 werewolf, he would be bitten to death by the werewolf next to him, and Yvonne would also be bitten to death by the werewolf next to her. No wonder the knights claimed that they protected the weak, because the weak were also useful to them. When Rudolf looked at Yvonne, he found that white wolf hair began to grow on Yvonne's body. Yvonne's werewolf identity was about to be hidden, and her apostle power was on the verge of losing control. Rudolf was unusually sober at this time, and he suddenly transformed the star power into venom. Scorpio witch language, venom, was running wildly at this moment. Damn it, the knight wanted to break through the level 2 knight. What does it have to do with Yvonne? What does it have to do with him? The star power of the level 1 wizard turned into venom, actively rushed to the chain, and was sucked away by the guardian chain. Do you want it? Then I'll give it all to you. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 29. The power of the knight actually overwhelmed the level 2 werewolf at this moment, and his sword had already penetrated 5 centimeters into the werewolf's neck. The werewolf's neck was much thicker than the knight had imagined. Just as the knight was preparing to make a final effort and use this life and death battle to become a level 2 knight, he suddenly felt numbness and pain in his back. The guardian chain behind him connected his 3 children, who were knight squires and also connected to his cavalry. But what was the power coming from the chain? Poison. Who was it? A wizard or a plague carrier? The knight's momentum suddenly stagnated and could no longer be raised as before. The knight looked around with his peripheral vision, and there were werewolves all around. If he died, his 3 children would all die here. Using the knight's sword skills, Sir Jacques suddenly changed from slashing to stabbing, and stabbed the werewolf's neck with the sword. If the head was not cut off, the werewolf would not die, but if the werewolf's throat was pierced in this way, the werewolf would also be seriously injured. He tried his best to twist the broadsword left and right in the werewolf's neck, trying to cut it off. However, his broadsword was unfortunately stuck in the werewolf's cervical vertebrae. The werewolf instinctively tilted his neck at the last moment. The level 2 werewolf whimpered in his throat, and blood spurted out from around the broadsword. However, none of this could change the fact that Sir Jacques' momentum was rapidly declining. The claw blade that the werewolf had originally used to block the broadsword was now empty and slashed towards Sir's helmet. At this time, Sir's knightly power could no longer allow the helmet to provide him with strong protection. The claw blade slashed past, and Sir's head and helmet were cut into 4 pieces. Father! Jennifer wanted to rush to her father, but it was too late. Sir was dead. The level 2 werewolf retreated step by step, and the blood was still flowing. At this time, the level 1 werewolf closest to the level 2 werewolf wanted to step forward to help the level 2 werewolf. However, this level 1 werewolf actually bit the broadsword and shook its head wildly. The broadsword tore a bigger wound on the neck of the level 2 werewolf. Seeing that someone had taken action first, the level 1 werewolves rushed to the level 2 werewolves. The conditions for the werewolf to be promoted are very simple. Biting off the neck of a high-level werewolf and drinking the blood of the high-level werewolf can be promoted. Rudolf didn't have time to witness the birth of a new level 2 werewolf. He pulled out his revolver and shot at the werewolf next to Ivan. At this time, the advantage of the revolver being more flexible than the shotgun was brought into play. The two of them were not far away, and Rudolf killed the werewolf with 2 shots. At this time, the smart wolf servants had surrounded the battlefield of the level 1 and level 2 werewolves. If a level 1 werewolf was seriously injured, the wolf servant would also have the opportunity to be promoted. This is the rule of the werewolf tribe. There is no weak alpha wolf in the wolf pack, because the weak alpha wolf will be defeated by the challenger and then torn apart by its own pack of wolves. But the werewolf in front of Rudolf was obviously not smart enough. Even at this time, he was still biting Rudolf's arm. After swallowing a mouthful of blood, the werewolf felt like he had returned to the past, back to when he was still a human, back to when he first drank strong liquor. His entire chest and lungs felt like they were burning, and after the burning came severe pain, and numbness came from his limbs. The blood is poisonous. Rudolf used a revolver to point the werewolf's head and shot him away. At this time, Ivan finally got rid of her troubles and rushed to Rudolf in a few steps. Her eyes were full of worry. After lifting the horse, she dragged Rudolf out. At this time, the werewolves and the remaining cavalry were in a mess. The level 1 werewolves who wanted to advance, the wolf servants who didn't know who to surrender to, the 3 children of Sir Jakes, and the loyal cavalry. Some of the cavalry wanted to escort the children of the Lord away, and some did want to avenge the Lord. Only Rudolf and Ivan had nothing to do with these people. Rudolf shouted, "Run!" Rudolf's leg was broken, and Ivan carried Rudolf on her back and ran out of the battle circle without hesitation. Every full moon night, Ivan would lose her mind. Ivan had already used up the wolf poison potion that Rudolf made last time, so now that he had a broken leg, there was nothing good to do. On Ivan's back, Rudolf opened his pocket watch. Ivan had always been a little curious. When it was just the two of them, Rudolf always took out his pocket watch to check the time. At this time, Rudolf's arm came out from in front of Ivan's neck, and Ivan could see the pocket watch. She then discovered that there was a crystal inside the cover of the pocket watch, and there was a picture in the crystal. Rudolf pointed in a direction, signaling Ivan to run there. After Ivan became a level 1 werewolf, even in human form, her physical strength was better than Rudolf's. The two of them took advantage of the chaos and fled all the way. They fled into the forest and into the depths of the forest. Ivan was a little worried. The forest was the home of werewolves, so this was not a wise decision. However, out of trust in Rudolf, Ivan kept running as Rudolf asked. Suddenly, an ominous sound appeared in the forest. There seemed to be something behind the bushes. Ivan was worried, but Rudolf was more relieved. Soon, a shadow appeared in the distance. A group of shadows stood in the woods, waiting for Rudolf and Ivan. "Cooper!" Rudolf shouted Cooper's name. The shadows made way, and a short child came out. His face was painted with luminous paint, and the paint was a clown pattern. The clown face was glowing with a fixed stiff smile. "Hello, annoying patrolman." Cooper took off his hat and saluted Rudolf and Ivan. "There are werewolves and knights fighting in front, run quickly. I brought you a message, hoping that you will come back to collect the bodies later." Of course, Rudolf also found an extra guarantee for himself. At the critical moment, Cooper may have a miraculous effect. Rudolph kindly reminded Cooper, but Cooper shook his head and put on his hat again. "I'm going to kill the werewolf, goodbye, annoying patrolman." "But there is a level 2 werewolf in there," Cooper said indifferently. "I smell the smell of a corpse. The level 2 apostle is dying now, he is in a dying state." "Dying?" Rudolph sniffed, he couldn't smell anything. Cooper led the way, and behind him, there was a group of corpses. Rudolph recognized Captain Secco, but Captain Secco's head was sewn on a level 1 werewolf. It was very inconsistent that a werewolf had a human head. Captain Secco followed Cooper closely, and it seemed that Cooper liked it very much. In addition to Captain Secco, there were 2 level 1 werewolves. 3 level 1 werewolves, even if the apostles controlled by zombies were not as strong as they were when they were alive, they were still a powerful force. After that, there were 5 wolf servants. This was Cooper's victory in the wilderness during this period. He seemed to have found a lot of useful corpses. There were also lions and tigers following the tamer who had been gutted. There was also an acrobat who kept throwing bottles. After this creepy circus walked away, Rudolph signaled Ivan to let him down. "Ivan, go, you won't be able to catch up if you're late. If the level 2 werewolf is dying, then you have a chance." Weird Star Witch. Author, White Silver Black Iron. Chapter 30. Rudolph showed Ivan the picture in the pocket watch, and pointed at the besieged level 2 werewolf. "Ivan, find a good time and go." Ivan leaned close to Rudolph, curiously poking her head to look at the picture in the pocket watch crystal. She looked at the crystal and felt it was magical. The picture of the crystal kept switching, sometimes overlooking the forest from a very high altitude, and sometimes it seemed to be looking down from the branches. Of course, the most important thing was the battlefield not far away. The level 2 werewolf was seriously injured and dying, and the level 1 werewolves besieged the level 2 werewolf. The level 2 werewolf's head was not chopped off by the night. As long as he didn't die, it would only take time for him to recover from his injuries. Therefore, the attack of those level 1 werewolves was very determined. The level 1 werewolves were bitten to death one by the level 2 werewolves. During this period, the 3 children of the night tried to avenge their father, but they were also drained of power by the night's guardian chain, and now even the surrounding wolf servants could not break through. The weak cavalrymen were completely unable to exert their combat effectiveness. They fell one after another. They were too weak to fight at all. If the knight was still alive, he could use the guardian chain to feed back the power to the cavalrymen, which is also a common situation on the battlefield. When it is necessary to concentrate strength to break through, the entire cavalry will pass the power to the senior knights. When a chaotic battle is needed, the senior knights will disperse the power to the cavalry. But now Sir Jacques is dead, and he died with everyone's power. Even Jennifer's 2 younger brothers were bitten to death by werewolves one after another. All this happened quickly until Cooper appeared. When Cooper waved his hand, the corpses of the level 1 werewolves and the corpses of Jennifer's 2 younger brothers all stood up from the ground. Together with the 3 level 1 werewolves behind Cooper, Cooper became the decisive force at this time. As long as there are enough corpses, the ability of the zombies is terrifying. Rudolph was anxious. "Go quickly, Ivan. If you go too late, you can't even drink the soup." Rudolph didn't expect that the level 2 werewolf was so useless. From the perspective of the pet crystal, the level 2 werewolf was really dying, especially under the siege of Cooper. Ivan did not abandon Rudolph, she carried Rudolph to the edge of the battlefield just now. "Ivan, go out directly in werewolf form, don't let those people see who you are. Quick! The level 2 werewolf is dying." Ivan also saw the dying level 2 werewolf, but she still chose to take off her clothes first. Rudolph was a little speechless. Women are still troublesome. Yvonne took off her coat, outer pants, and shoes before she chose to transform. She was going to come back and wear this dress again. A white wolf rushed out of the forest and rushed to the center of the battlefield in a hurry. The ears of the level 2 werewolf had been bitten off by the werewolf controlled by Cooper, and his shoulders and limbs were covered with scars. However, the white wolf jumped up and bit the neck of the level 2 werewolf before Cooper's werewolf. Strangely, Cooper did not attack the white wolf. An arrow landed on the trainer's shoulder. Cooper knew this arrow. It was this arrow that led Cooper to this place and let Cooper pick up many corpses. Although he did not know this white wolf, the owl meant that the annoying patrolman participated in this battle again. Although Cooper said that he hated Rudolph, he knew that Rudolph had no ill will towards them from beginning to end, and his life was also saved by Rudolph. The blood flowed, and the white wolf completely bit the level 2 werewolf to death. And the white wolf also became a level 2 werewolf. The white wolf's body became stronger, with broad shoulders, thick forelimbs, and short and thick terrifying claws. Fortunately, after Yvonne's transformation, she still looked like a 16-year-old girl. He did not want to train Yvonne into a muscular loli. There were still some werewolves or cavalrymen lying on the ground who were lucky enough not to die. As for the werewolves, Cooper directly commanded the corpse werewolves to bite them to death, expanding Cooper's collection. Jennifer tried her best to look up and looked at the cold hell-like scene. Her father was dead, her 2 younger brothers were dead, and as for the ordinary cavalry, they were all dead. Jennifer's younger brother and 2 knights squires, who were obviously dead, stood up staggeringly at this time and became Cooper's collection. After Cooper cleaned up the battlefield, he walked into the forest with the white wolf and disappeared from Jennifer's sight. The bloody smell in the cold wind was all the blood of the knight's castle. Jennifer wanted to cry, but she couldn't cry, she just felt desperate. She would slowly go into shock due to excessive blood loss until she died. At this time in the forest, it was a meeting to divide the spoils. Rudolph sat at the root of the tree, his legs were not healed, so he couldn't move. The white wolf wanted to change his clothes, but Rudolph curiously stroked the white wolf's mane and kept praising the more heroic white wolf. Yvonne, you are really the chosen wolf girl. In such a short time, you have become a level 2 werewolf. Yvonne's pupils were filled with lingering sadness, and she unconsciously approached Rudolph. Rudolph felt a little sorry for mentioning Yvonne's sad story. She still needed time to slowly forget the pain. He reached out and touched the white wolf's head. Go change your clothes. The white werewolf stood up, grabbed his clothes, and walked behind the tree trunk. Rudolph then looked at Cooper. At this time, 2 wolf servants were carrying the corpse of a level 2 werewolf. The claw blade of a level 2 werewolf was so conspicuous. Rudolph asked in confusion, "Level 2 werewolf, why don't you get up?" Cooper's face was still covered with luminous clown paint, and he said in a flat voice, "No, I'm just a level 1 zombie now." Rudolph pointed to his broken leg. "I saw you just collected wolf saliva. Given our relationship, why don't you give me one? A broken leg hurts." A werewolf gave him a portion of wolf saliva. Rudolph didn't shy away and made wolf poison potion in front of Cooper. Rudolph had been collecting aconitum, which was crushed and mixed with wolf saliva, and then refined with star power. Cooper asked, "Are you a druid?" "No." "Then why can you control owls and make wolf's bane potion?" "Secret." Cooper didn't say much without getting an answer. After thinking for a while, he said, "Let's make a deal." Hearing Cooper's words, Rudolph raised his head curiously. "What deal?" "You are my white glove, and you help me sell my harvest in the wilderness in the city." "What?" Rudolph looked at Cooper in surprise. "Is your luminous oil paint poisonous?" "How can you ask such a question?" "I am a patrolman, a regular patrolman in Lehman Town. How can I be a white glove for a zombie?" 30% to 70%. Rudolph was stunned for a moment, then continued. This is not good, only giving you 30%? I am a little embarrassed. Listen to me, 40% to 60%, giving you 40%. Cooper looked at Rudolph in shock. He couldn't believe Rudolph's plan.